a dress. But I am going to try to climb that tree real quick for you guys because I love climbing trees. Even though I fell out of a tree when I was like 10 years old, 30-foot tree, blacked out, not fun, but you know, I never learned my lesson. I accidentally stopped the video, so we're gonna try it again. Fun times! I think this is the coolest tree ever because it has like a 90-degree angle right here. How cool. Anyways, gotta have fun with life. Just because you're older doesn't mean you can't have fun, right? But be careful, don't do this at home, kids. I'm a trained professional. I'm a trained professional tree climber. Have you ever killed someone? Because I have. Not in the way that you're thinking, okay? But I had to let someone die. A version of me that I loved, right? The version that helped me, you know, survive when I didn't know how to live. She was soft, she was sweet, but she was terrified of being abandoned, so she abandoned herself instead. Does that sound familiar to anybody? She made people feel safe at the cost of her own peace, you know, and she stayed small to keep others comfortable. She overloved, over-apologized, over everything, okay, just to be enough. I miss her sometimes, but I could not bring her with me on this journey. You know, this is the grief that no one talks about. Not the grief of losing someone else, but the grief of outgrowing yourself, of shedding your own skin. You know, it's kind of like you're a snake, right? You're becoming the new version of yourself. You have to release your old habits and behaviors to make room for this new version. You know what I mean? And, you know, you got to say goodbye to the survival version of you so you can become who you really are, right? Even though it's hard to let go sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. But this episode is for anyone who's felt that ache, who's, you know, chosen themselves finally and felt guilty about it. This is about grief, goodbye, and the powerful, painful, beautiful process of becoming. So, to all of my becomers out there, I hope you are having an amazing day. And thank you for joining me today. And let's get started on this video. So, there's a version of me that I have been grieving lately. She wasn't bad. She wasn't weak. She was just surviving the only way that she knew how to. You know what I mean? She over-explained herself constantly, she overextended, over-cared, over-apologized just to feel seen and safe. You know, she was sweet, she was soft, and scared to death of being left behind and being alone. You know, so scared in fact that she kept abandoning herself to keep other people around. You know, and I loved her. I still do. But I had to let her go. A version of me, she was born out of trauma, of codependency, and deep emotional neglect. She learned early on that love was something you earned by making yourself useful. And here's a little psychology insight fact for y'all. This is what psychologists refer to as fawning. You know, it's a trauma response where people, you know, people please. That's like a lot of people's. They shrink or over accommodate to avoid conflict or abandonment. You know, it's a nervous system adaptation. It's not a flaw, it's survival. So if this sounds like you, don't feel ashamed. You know, it happens to so many people. Does anybody still love juice boxes? Because I do. You know, and I feel like a little kid again. I just feel like I'm in second grade, just enjoying my freaking fruit roll up and Dunkaroos with my juice box. Cheers. That old version of me thought that if she was low maintenance enough, easy enough, you know, if she was quiet enough, maybe she'd finally be loved, right? The way that she craved. She poured and poured out of her cup until she had nothing left. And, you know, I was just hoping somebody might finally notice and give me something back. But that never happened. The reason of that is because I never gave to myself first. And when we don't have internal boundaries, when our worth is tied to being needed, you know, we're constantly performing and we're constantly exhausted, you know? If we have nothing left in our cup, how are we going to survive? Literally. The thing is that I never suddenly woke up feeling empowered and had like this spark. You know what I mean? Choosing myself didn't feel fierce. It felt terrifying. I did not feel strong. Okay, I felt guilty. I questioned everything. I asked myself, am I being selfish? Will they still love me if I stop bending and, you know, accommodating to their needs? And we've talked about this in some of my other videos about cognitive dissonance. This is a prime example of it. You know, it's when our old beliefs about what used to keep us safe clash with our new truths about what we actually need. You know, that discomfort is normal. And it's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're actually growing. So, you know, you gotta look at these small little moments and be proud of yourself because you are evolving into the human that you were always meant to be, right? Saying no felt wrong, and sometimes it still does to me. It's hard for me to say no sometimes, but you know, I am practicing. The more you practice, the more easier it gets, and that is the truth, okay? You know, resting made me feel anxious, like I should be doing something right now, right? I always felt like I had to be on the go because when all that you've ever known is survival, peace can actually feel like danger. That's actually the mind and body detoxing the chaos they once were addicted to. Because you actually can become addicted to this chaos and not trauma, but you can become addicted to the stress. The hormone that is in your body the most, your body will keep producing it. So if you're always stressed, your body is going to keep producing stress hormones. It's crazy. If you guys want me to do a video on that, I can do that. There were so many moments that I missed her, and I still do, you know? I'm not gonna lie. The girl was good at being good, right? Who knew how to stay invisible just enough to be tolerated, but truly never seen. There were days, and still are some days, that I just want to bring her back. You know, because she made people comfortable, right? She didn't take up space. She didn't disappoint anyone except herself. And that is the biggest disappointment that you can ever do. But you know, I realized something is that she was never free. She was constantly stuck in freeze or fawn. And her nervous system was on overdrive, constantly trying to keep the peace externally because there was no peace inside. Does that make sense to everybody? You know, that's what we do. You know, if we don't have something inside, we will try to project it on the outside so it feels like we have it somehow. But no, we can't have anything on the outside if we don't have it on the inside first. It's very confusing, you know what I mean? But that's the truth. You feel like your nervous system is all over the place and you just need to calm down. Here's a little healing tool that you guys can use throughout your day to help you out. This is where your nervous system regulation comes in. Simple things like placing your hand over your heart and breathing deeply for 30 seconds can really help. It sounds so simple, but I'm telling you, it actually does help. Moving your body, exercise, is always beneficial, especially walking barefoot in the ground, because you're grounding yourself with nature in the present moment, you know? Also reminding yourself that it's safe to take up space now. You have to remind yourself, the more you tell yourself, the more you're actually going to believe it. So if you don't tell yourself that ever, you're not going to believe it. Small little practices send signals to your brain that you're not in danger anymore. It's not just surviving anymore, you know? I'm building space that doesn't come from being chosen, but from choosing myself, you know? Now I can rest without guilt. I can say no without having to over-explain. You know, no is a full sentence, guys. You can just say no. And I never knew this until my later years, but you know, it is true. You don't have to explain yourself. You know, I also have learned to speak without shrinking, and also love myself without without waiting for somebody to validate it. I'm just validating myself. And let me be honest, some people did not like the new me, and that's okay. You know, some people don't have to come with you on your journey of evolving because they have not reached your level of awareness, and that's okay. You know, we meet people at the same level of vibration and awareness as us, so we're gonna attract our tribe no matter what. Now, I wasn't growing to keep others comfortable. I was growing to come home to my true self, you know, to my soul. Here's like another little psychology insight for you guys. Growth always involves identity loss, okay? And that's the hardest part. You have to shed a part of yourself, your old version. Letting go of my past versions of myself, like, was a form of grief, right? And it's called self-concept disintegration, which is the moment your old identity falls apart to make room for your new self. It's always going to feel uncomfortable, you know, stepping outside of your comfort zone, right? It's crazy because that's the only way you're going to grow and evolve, is to step outside of that. The craziest thing is that our nervous system would rather pick a familiar hell than an unfamiliar heaven. Let that sink in, guys. Your nervous system would rather pick, well, we'll choose first, a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven, because you are used to that. Even though it is ruining you inside, your nervous system doesn't care because you are comfortable with that chaos. If you are in that space right now, if you're grieving the version of yourself that, you know, people loved because they were easy, I see you and I was you, you know, and I want you to know that you can grieve them and still outgrow them. You can love who you were, but still not want to live there anymore, you know? You can also miss how they survived while choosing to live instead, right? You don't owe the world, you know, the version of you that never had needs. You don't have to water yourself down to be worthy. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to protect your peace. And you're allowed to take up space now, fully, wildly, and unapologetically. If you don't have like any incentive to do this, I'm giving you that motivation right now. You can evolve to the best version of yourself and create the best life possible for yourself. Let them go. Not because they were wrong, but because they were no longer true to yourself. This time we don't shrink, we don't stay small, we don't just survive. This time we become. If you have been here for a while now, you know that becoming has been the heart of this podcast from the very beginning. You know, it's not about having it all figured out. It's about growing and evolving and shedding those old layers of ourselves and showing up as who we were meant to be. So I kind of already mentioned this, but you know, I thought that if other creators could have names for their communities, I thought, why not us? So from now on, you guys are officially my becomers. You know, the ones who keep choosing growth, softness, strength, and truth, even when it's messy. Thank you to my becomers, you know, for being on this journey with me. I am so grateful to each and every one of you. You know, I know this podcast doesn't have so many, you know, people joining right now, but I know it's going to, you know, attract the right people, the people that are meant to see this, right? It's not about quantity, it's about quality, right? And we're not just healing, we are becoming together. And that is the main thing, together. We got this. So if you have not killed anybody, now is your time to kill somebody. And that is your old versions of yourself that are not, I guess, compatible with who you are meant to be and who you are destined to become. I just want to say thank you guys for joining me today. It's been a blast and a half. And you know, I just want to say I am so grateful to each and every single one of you guys. Every little comment, like, means the world to me. You know, I'm just so grateful to have this support and have you guys on this journey with me. because we are becoming together. We're the becomers, and I love that. So anyways, have an amazing day. I hope you guys are enjoying the sunshine. If you have some sunshine outside, get some vitamin D because it's very important for your mental health. And I will see you guys in the next video. So, mwah! I love you all, my becomers, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!